If you would all please rise in recognition of the flag of our country.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'd like to introduce Rabbi Gil Alkadev to give the invocation.
All-powerful God, God of our ancestry, God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who has made human beings in your image and likeness. As we assemble here to memorialize and celebrate the life of Philip Pumerantz, Pinchas ben Aaron HaKohen, of blessed memory. We will remember him as an individual who made an indelible impact on our life as he deliberately chose to dedicate his life to bring hope, healing, progress to our societies and communities. As a rabbi, I witness the growth of this esteemed institution throughout my tenure, as it was blessed by increasing number of graduates from all facets of health sciences fields. This Almighty God could come only with a great vision, fortitude, faith, and with undying inspiration that Philip of blessed memory brought with him to the forefront. His legacy here on earth and here tonight will continue as a constant inspiration to all of us for years and years to come. May the sacred memory of Philip be our guiding light for good deeds, the mitzvot that he has done throughout his life. May his actions during his life will be exemplary for our own life today and in the future. And may they be constant blessing and eternal heritage. All-powerful God, God of life and death, turn our hearts toward those we love, admire, and cherish. And may Philip's undying memory become an incentive to our deeds today and always. And let us say amen.
You may be seated. Thank you, Rabbi. My name is Richard Pumerantz. I'm the youngest of three. And today is a celebration of life. So I'm going to be the first one, hopefully, to start smiling because we want to celebrate Philip Pumerantz. And so in doing that, we'll be asking different people representing different viewpoints and different times of his life professionally for the university, and for them to share some thoughts of their own. Now, strategically placed throughout the room, I believe, there are plenty of these. They're not high tech. I don't believe there are any instructions on them, but it's an opportunity to enjoy. Sometimes even in joy, there are tears. So please take the opportunity to celebrate in the best way that you feel. First person that I'd like to introduce, of course, is Dr. Dan Wilson, President of Western University of Health Sciences. Dr. Wilson.
Well, thank you, Richard, and I'd like to thank the military, the singers, Rabbi, for your wisdom and thoughts, and thank all of you for being here today to celebrate the life of a remarkable man. Our great man is gone, but he's still with us in the consequence of his remarkable life in building this university. Phil, in my experience, having gotten to know him well, remarkably well in a rather short time, is a singular fellow. He had an indomitable quality, but also very sweet, and a man of ready action, but a big heart as well. And as much fortitude as he had, I saw glimpses of an interesting knavishness and playfulness that was remarkable. He reminds me of one of my favorite sonnets, Ozymandias by Shelley. You all know it, about Pharaoh Ramses II, the great Pharaoh. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair, and yet nothing remains round the decay of the colossal wreck of the statue, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away. And it's not the theme of decay that resonates in my mind with Phil, but the boldness and audacity and the accomplishment. Yes, all people and institutions eventually pass away, as Western U probably will in centuries or millennia in the future. But Phil's indomitable spirit lives on in this absolutely unique university that he, with Harriet and others, Ethan Allen and some of the first pioneers, Dr. Bond, Dr. Ross in the audience, built and sustained. All of this has been conjured in just 40 years out of thin air by ideas and effort. It's an honor and humbling to succeed him, but it's sort of like taking on the Globe Theater after Shakespeare walks away from it. And I hope that we can achieve a half or even a tenth of what he has achieved. And I use the present tense, has achieved, rather than did, because although he is gone from us, his achievements live and thrive and will have a very bright future. Mentioning Shakespeare, and since Phil was first a history teacher, I will close with words from another Shakespeare history play, Julius Caesar. You all know this as well. Mark Antony's speech about friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears. But after that, Antony says, the evil men do lives after them. The good is interred with their bones. That is not true of Phil Pumerantz. The good that he achieved, the remarkable good, will live after him and shine brightly. Antony goes on to say, it's not right, my fellow citizens, for an oration of so great a man to be delivered by me as an individual, but instead by his whole realm. And Phil, this whole realm of Western U celebrates you and your remarkable life, even as you look down on us with a cute grin and eyes a twinkle. And I really want to thank you for building this wonderful institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Instead of giving a speech from the family, because what we really all feel is that you are all our family. And I want to thank not only those of you who are here, but those of you who are also watching on the live stream on YouTube. Regardless of where you are, this is very important to us. You are our extended family. So what I've done is to put together a few little anecdotes that I'll stick in between, and hopefully they'll answer some questions that probably have popped up over time. If they haven't, then it's something new that you've learned. There's a reason that we're standing at this particular podium, which is known as the Saul Burnett podium. Saul was, after my father came here, was the first chairman of the board. But this podium was also assembled, I have to be careful on the word choice, assembled by my brother, Andy, who claims that he can't build anything. But so far, Andy, it's still here, so we're okay. It's only appropriate, of course, when we talk about the board and this podium, that the next speaker, of course, be representing the Board of Trustees. And Dr. Bond, many of you know, is the first graduate of Comp. He will always have a special heart. All the alumni are special parts of our family. And they were all through the house, and as a kid, this was something that we all lived. Because of Richard's name beginning with a B, he ended up being the lucky one to be the first. So, Dr. Bond, would you please join us?
I always thought it's because of my academics, but as a member of the first class at Western U, I've always believed that Dr. Pumerantz chose every one of us personally. I have no idea if that was actually true, but we were indeed like a family. I don't know what he saw in me, but he encouraged me and steered me through my academic and professional growth. I dare say no person other than my parents had as great an impact on me. I am so thankful to have had Phil and Harriet in my life. I hope I've made them proud. Now, speaking as a chairman of the Board of Trustees, we're continually aware of how he also steered the university for almost 40 years. Without Phil Pumerantz, Western U of Health Sciences might still be a small college with one discipline, or in fact, might not have succeeded at all. We owe him much, and we will miss him much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bond. There are some myths I'm going to also try to either verify or dismiss. But one of the myths that is important, and it's appropriate because of our next speaker, is the fact that the first, make sure I've got the right note here, that the first people to visit my father to entice him to come here to the university was, of course, Dr. Ethan Allen and Dr. Don Dilworth. Now, for those of you who have seen me walking around with this tie, which I used to refer to it as that ugly tie that my father would wear, takes on a different hue now, but I think it was much brighter back then. But Dr. Allen and Dilworth were back to Chicago when my father was with the AOA, and they brought him this California tie to present it as an enticement. You see where this is going. So he wore it, and as an emblem of his commitment, he continued to wear it. And he wore it at many, many events, and religiously wore this tie to every commencement ceremony in particular because of its importance. So it was only appropriate today that I wear it so that everyone have an opportunity to see his commitment, even to the end, of his belief in the family of Western University. Our next speaker, of course, is Dr. Paula Crone, who is the Dean of Comp. And Paula is another one of the special, everyone's special, so I'm going to say that word a lot. I apologize now. Paula, please.
As a proud Comp graduate from the class of 1992 and current Dean of Comp, I was asked to represent our Western U alumni today. From his humble beginning with 31 graduates of his first class, we grew to 14,461 graduates from all of Western U. In my own heart, I carry many snapshots and memories of our founding president, as do all of our graduates. He gave us our chance, education being the gateway to our futures, taking a chance on many of us through the years. A quote from one of our recent graduates: "Not only did he take chances to give us a chance, but he took these chances because he saw the future potential in the school and in his students. He was able to take his small team and an old J.C. Penney building and transform it into 22 acres of healthcare education, building it all into a thriving environment where to this day, our students continue to work hard to achieve their dreams. What a remarkable gift to the world," from one of our recent grads. Our alumni stories are many. The impact is far-ranging, and the legacy that he left behind, everlasting. While a Comp medical student, my mother passed away. I now knew President Pumerantz and Harriet longer than I did my mother. They had that special presence in my life, as they did for so many of us. When in doubt, I could pick up the phone and call him and know that he wouldn't tell me what I should do, but he would invariably share what he did in a similar situation. Now, don't get me wrong, he was also famous for telling us what to do. He loved being president. One of the last times I talked with him about school business, he had called me for an update on the college. When I finished, I asked him what he would do about a certain situation. And he said, "Paula," in the way that he could, "this is what I did when I was faced with this." And he gave me 2 words. Now, you need to know, we are a big, busy, and sometimes complicated operation. And he loved every piece of it, every morsel. He never got enough of hearing all the details. And our conversations were often very lively. His words that day were not what I was expecting to hear. They were not one of his directives. He was not sharing his vision for the future. All conversations I was very accustomed to. Now, this day it was different. And knowing what I do now, they took great courage to say. I am not sharing these 2 words as they're not part of our alumni story, but not a day goes by that I don't use these words as a personal measure of how the college is doing. And they serve me well for most situations. They were his words to me. And I know he shared his own words with so many of you, words that were equally as poignant and special and are carried in each of our hearts today. As you carry your own snapshots with you, carry his special words of wisdom with you as well. I have many special memories of President Pumerantz captured in my heart and cherished. One of my favorites is as a new graduate. In the parking lot following my commencement, my family was gathered around. He was hurrying to get to his next event, which couldn't have started without him. But despite his hurry, he stopped, visited with my family, and insisted on taking a photo of all of us. The last one I have of all of us together. And every time I look at this photo, I remember his kindness in stopping and how he honored us that day. He was like that. He made each of us feel special and each of us feel part of his family. Another favorite memory was during my first commencement in Pasadena as dean. I was standing with him on stage as diplomas were being handed out. He took such pleasure in that moment, and his pleasure and his pride was contagious. He truly loved his students and he loved his graduates. And he loved the fact that he got to stand up there on that stage with his deans and see the future of healthcare walk before him and know that he helped to create it and helped to shape it. And he never stopped doing that. His impact will always be felt by every patient treated by a Western U graduate and by every subsequent trainee who goes on to mentor and train others. Multiply 14,000 by all the patients our Western U graduates see, and you can appreciate the multiple millions of lives that this one man's legacy already represents. These are lives changed, lives impacted, lives saved. A very proud legacy indeed. To the Pumerantz family, thank you for sharing your husband, father, grandfather with all 14,461 Western U proud and grateful graduates. And if I could, will all of the Western U graduates and students that are in the room please stand for a moment? President Pumerantz, it was an honor, sir. Thank you.
So you've probably all wondered how the logo started. If you haven't, I'm going to tell you anyway because I wrote it down. But of course, the idea of the logo or seal was that it would be round, as you see those patches. My father was not artistic. And so one of the things that he did in order to start this effort to create an actual logo or seal was that he needed to draw a circle. as I said, he was not artistic. So to draw the circle, he decided this was simple. He had in the bathroom Dixie cups. So he took a Dixie cup, and he was able to take the base out of it. Remember, how many of you taken the bases out of a Dixie cup, right? And then he could draw the little snake and his staff, and he put some words on it. So there you go. The first seal of comp was actually on the base of a Dixie cup. Now, so if a university represents the boat, and the president is often referred to as representing talk about blanking, the captain of the boat, thank you. The deans, of course, would represent the rowers. Okay, I was actually going to go with the rudder to give a little effort. But I can tell you that the administration would be the tiller. They would be the ones that are giving the input and the efforts to the direction to make sure that the ship is heading in the correct direction. And so to represent the administration today, I'd like to have Dr. Gary Gugelchuk, Provost of the University, come and give his remarks. Thank you.
I'm already beginning to feel like we're listing. But thank you. The part there is that I had the privilege of working alongside him for 30 years, almost 31, and his part there is long and involved and full of memories, some tough, some rough, some hilarious. And the part there is that to see that side of Phil was always a part there, but I always appreciated it. The one thing in the part there, and I brought this as a visual aid more than anything else, is I never saw Phil carry a briefcase. Instead, when he came in the morning, he was carrying a vinyl-covered calendar with a comp logo on that was from, and I remember, I think Jerry Bales gave those out in the Christmas gifts, still had the comp logo. And even the secretary's trying to figure out is how do we find there's no more suppliers of the inserts to go into this calendar anymore. And the other thing I remember is his notepad. And part there, and it was particularly poignant on Mondays when he had the whole weekend to read, to talk to people, to think. He would come in with this notepad and his notes on it. And many of us in the administration must remember the familiar phone call from Charlene that said, "The president has something for you, could you pop up?" And you'd show that, and it would be either a note scrawled onto this thing that you're now looking at. Part there is, what was that written? In fact, now thinking about it, Phil must have been the founder of the concept of the pop-up ad. But if on those notes, and was what he was thinking of as scrawling that, and we would get these things, and sometimes we'd look at it going, no, that's not going to work. You know, well, that's possible. Let me think about it for a bit. Part there. But the part there is he was always thinking of new things, and for the part there for the university, always thinking about it day in, day out, all weekend long, and those phone calls on the Monday to just see the part there, what was he thinking of in the broad range, was exhilarating, sometimes exhausting. And that sort of brings me to my next point for the administration is after many years of that Phil would offer a State of the University address. And the part there was that, but at every address, he would always bring us to attention that change is inevitable for the university, that managing change is the most significant challenge of a university, but there is always the demand and need for change. So that was my attempt to deliver my version of the inner fill from all those years of State of the University addresses. And I will never forget them. And I too, like Paula, thank Harriet, Andy, Richard, Betsy, for sharing Phil with us. And also remembering that as a time you were always a part of us too. So thank you.
On the topic of stationery, a lot of people have wondered, how did the university pick the color of the stationery? It has often had, of course you know, for those who don't, it's brown. Brown was the color. And it was often referred to in various hues of brown. But it was brown. I'd like for you to all know the actual reason that it was brown and why the stationery was what it was. Because in 1977, with zero budget and zero money, he went out to the local stationery store with his then assistant, Melanie Commandant, for those who remember, and he went up and asked, "What stationery do you have?" And they said, "Well, we have a variety of stationeries you can order." And he said, No, I need it now. I need pads, I need envelopes, she said, "Well, we got this stuff that was just returned." The other word my mom wanted to use was frugal. So, and just continuing on the theme of being frugal, something that you have probably seen. If you haven't, you do need to see it. It is the first blueprints that my father had drawn to decide what the university floor plan should look like for the first building, right? For those of you who remember, how many remember the JCPenney building? Okay, I'm not going to ask how many people shopped in the JCPenney building. But my father was a man of great vision, loved the big view, 40,000-foot view. The details, as Gary could attest, not so good, but he'd let somebody else figure that out. So he took a napkin, and by a napkin I mean a cocktail napkin. Some of you get that. And he drew out with a pen what he thought was going to be the appropriate floor plan as an idea, and it's actually out there on the table. So if you go out, you can see it's in a frame. It's in his office, and he took that floor plan that he was very proud of, that he scratched out. Look, there's offices, there's laboratories, and he gave it to my father-in-law, who was the building contractor, and he said, "I want this." And just like when Gary said you'd get the yellow pads, yeah, there were the brown pads, he said, "I want this." And he said, "Okay." And he'd go figure it out. So if you want to see what the first blueprints look like from the first napkin, that's also in the President Emeritus' office. So a little bit of history is maintained in the university. Also, one last point on the brown. My father did say that the one constant in life was changed. And he did. He believed that, except when it came to his brown pens, which I got in trouble using on an exam because it said black or blue. Just letting you know, got in trouble with that one. I'll skip the analogies of the boats because that went so well on the last comment. But you know you can't have a university without faculty. And faculty are key. They are the lifeblood of the university because that is how the education is passed. So on behalf of the faculty, I have Dr. Micah Hatta, the professor of College of Pharmacy. Micah, where are you? There he is.
Okay, so I knew I was supposed to say a few words. I didn't realize I was speaking on behalf of the faculty until this morning. I would imagine that there are much more qualified faculty to speak on our behalf. Maybe I'm representing the younger faculty. I like to think I'm still young. But I'm truly honored. Try to do the best I can. When I was thinking about what to say, I think one word kept popping into my head. It's a word that I think Dr. P wanted Western U to be known for: humanistic. I feel like after going to school here and working here as faculty, it's been embedded into my vocabulary at every convocation and commencement ceremony. And yet, I never really understood what it meant. I mean, I think I thought I did. I thought it meant treating our patients not as a number or a medical condition or a problem to solve, but as a human being. Flesh and blood, feelings and emotions. But I think for Dr. P, approaching things from a humanistic perspective meant even more than that. It meant developing relationships with the people around you. It was not only seeing someone as an individual human being, but inviting them to be a part of your community. And he didn't just preach this philosophy, he lived it. As one of the pharmacists at the PCC, I would occasionally make house calls to the Pumerantzes to see how they were doing. Whenever Dr. P saw me, he would ask me how I was doing, how things at the college were, and how my family was. This was the president of the university, and yet he was so down to earth and so easily approachable. I remember when he found out I was having triplets. I know, triplets. He turned to Mrs. P and whoever else would listen and say, "Did you know Micah here is having triplets?" One day he even said we should do a story on it. He sounded so proud of me, like I had done something to deserve a story. I'm thinking at least one of us is excited. The whole time I'm thinking, what the heck just happened to my life? And I certainly didn't do anything to deserve an article to be written about me. But he didn't see it that way. To him, I was a part of the Western U family, his family, and he wanted to celebrate it. He was genuinely excited and thrilled for me. Whenever he saw me, he would ask how the kids were. And he didn't do it just to make small talk. He was sincerely interested in hearing about my family, and he loved telling me about his. I will miss him asking me about how my family is doing. I'll miss showing him pictures of my kids and hearing him say, "That's amazing, Micah. That's really great." Dr. P, I know my story is one of many, and I appreciate the opportunity you've given me as one of your students and one of your faculty. But what I appreciate most is that you didn't see me as just another student, or just another alumnus, or just another faculty member, or even just another employee. You took a sincere interest in me as a person and made me feel like a part of yours and Mrs. P's community. And that to me is being humanistic. And it's how I try to interact with my patients each and every day. So rest assured that your legacy lives on, and it's something that I will try to teach to my students and to my kids. Thank you, Dr. P. And wherever you may be, whatever adventure you're tackling next, Godspeed, my friend.
One of the things that my father taught me as he was quite an exceptional president, was something that was called the president's prerogative. So as MC today, and Mike will go ahead and say that I'm okay on this, I get to assert the Master of Ceremonies prerogative and now introduce someone who has known me since I was young enough to babble, because we were both like 5 at the time, I think. So, and that would be Dr. Stephanie Bolin, Dean of the College of Allied Health Professions, which is appropriate since you were a professor and a dean. Come on.
I was 5 when I started working here, just so you know. The president recognized early that, I would like to thank the Pumerantz family for inviting me to speak today. I'm truly honored to represent the deans. I met Dr. P in 1990, and from that time to his retirement, he encouraged us to be the best leaders we could be. He taught us to be visionaries. He taught us to dream big, to look far ahead without any limits. He taught the deans and countless others to be soft yet strong, giving yet receiving, kind, humanistic, candid, and direct, but through it all to be resolved. As some of you may know, I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. P before he retired. Some colleagues said, "Weren't you nervous to interview Dr. P?" And I replied, no, because interviewing Dr. P was like talking to a mentor and a friend. As you guys also know, that Dr. P often shared and taught through stories. And a lot of you know where I'm going right now, and Harriet really knows. One of my favorite stories that the president always told, and Andrew's laughing because he knows where I'm going, is he often shared the story about him and Harriet taking a road trip back home, and they stopped at a gas station, right? And they ran into Harriet's old beau. So now the president, of course, knew he was the cat's meow, so he already knew this guy could not measure up to him, right? So he tells Harriet, "Look what I've done. Had you married this guy, you would have been the wife of a grease monkey, right?" And Harriet says, no, my dear. I would have also made him a university president." The love that Dr. P and Harriet shared could not be measured. Their devotion to one another, to family, community, and the work they shared created the foundation from which Western U has grown and will continue to grow for generations to come. Their legacy of humanism, excellence, and healthcare will endure through every faculty, administrator, staff, student, and alum. At this time, we're tempted to be sad at the loss of a great man, but as friends of Dr. P and Harriet, we honor him most by choosing instead to be happy for having known him. We are blessed with the opportunity to continue to realize his vision for Western U and forever be grateful to have been a part of his legacy. John Quincy Adams once said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn to do more, and become more, you are a leader," which so described Dr. P accurately. Thank you.
Again, prerogative. I'm going to be back on to the faculty because faculty is important. The Professor Emeritus, Rafa Unisai, who I'm going to introduce now. Rafa, come up. One of the few people who actually has known me since he was taller than me. Rafi.
Sure. He was shorter than I am, but now, as I grow older, I've lost at least 3 inches for my height, so that's the reason why I'm short. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm not much of a give you jokes to laugh. I'm an anatomist. Anatomists are supposed to be stiff people. And so anyway, I'm one of the devoted members of the COMP's original family of faculty. I came here in 1979 to teach anatomy to a combined first and second year students. And my first impression of Dr. Pumerantz was as a soft-spoken individual, but who was clearly determined for COMP to succeed. He had many other qualities, but due to limits of time, I have chosen 3 of examples of my work experience as examples of his 3 specific qualities. And here are the 3 qualities that I'll show you. One is he was a very keen judgment of his faculty, of faculty's professional abilities and interests. The second quality was that his support of programs that help students in becoming compassionate practitioners. That's 2. And the third one that I've chosen is his commitment to the growth of COMP as an institution of higher learning. So here are the 3 of my working examples to exemplify these 3 qualities of his. First of all, his keen judgment of the faculty. The initial class that we had of medical students, from my point of view, they were non-traditional students in that they were older, they had had some work experience, but they were very committed to become physicians, and they were very hardworking students. These students were, as typical medical students, they were overwhelmed by the intensity, the amount of detailed anatomy information, and particularly the cadaver dissection in the laboratory. So the small size of the class size made it doable. A few years later, Dr. Pumerantz called me to his office, and he said to let me know that he had doubled the number of student applicants and with no additional faculty. And I know that this will affect teaching anatomy in the laboratory, he said. So what are you going to do about this? So I assured him to respond. And the next day, I said, this is a no-brainer, really. The next day, I proposed peer-assisted teaching in the laboratory. And he listened, and with his blessing, we created a course called the Intensive Summer Anatomy course, which has been very, very successful. Now, the second example of this is support for programs that help students become compassionate practitioners. I was chosen as the faculty advisor for the International Medicine Club. And I said, I don't know what international medicine is. But they said, well, you're an international person, so we chose you to become one. So that's fine. So anyway, so I went to a conference, and in the conference, they suggested that the health institutions should be responsible to their surrounding communities. So I came back and told that Dr. Pumerantz. So the next day, he called me to his office, and there was a Pomona police chief and the founding lady of the Hispanic Community Youth Task Force, both community people. So with Dr. Pumerantz's help and Harriet's help, and 2 very able medical students, we started to create 2 community programs for the students, one called the Pomona Health Action Team, and the other was a Pomona Homeless Outreach Program. And the success of these 2 programs convinced or motivated Dr. Pumerantz to provide a generous funding for Office of International and Community Programs. So 2 years later, we were able to create a health clinic with the help of a local church in one of the Mexican squatter communities in Tijuana, Mexico. And in that, one of those sessions, a first-year student was examining a 3-year-old girl's cardiac rhythm. Excited and confused, the student asked for help from the attending physician, who also realized the need for immediate help. So Harriet, with support from Dr. Pumerantz, transported this 3-year-old girl from Tijuana to Loma Linda University, and the pediatric surgeon there diagnosed and replaced the missing left ventricle. So these events, including a 4th-year elective rotation in international health, provided ample student opportunities for community services, both locally and globally, to help them becoming compassionate practitioners. And of course, none of these could have happened without Dr. Pumerantz's vision and support. That's 2. And the last one is his commitment to the growth of COMP. Before I retired, my COMP became the medical school within the Western University of Health Sciences. And so we suggested to him that we should create a Western University-wide Center for Global and Community Health. His response, as usual, was very positive. Well, go ahead, do a study, write up a document, a handbook. And so we did that. We gave him the handbook, and he took the completed handbook before him. He said, it's very good, but there's no money to give you to start the center right now. And I just retired after that. So Dr. Pumerantz's accomplishments in developing COMP, called the original North Campus, was a small abandoned JCPenney store, to a complete graduate health sciences university in 30 years. Now, this speaks to his forethought and administrative skills, and the examples given indicate his compassion for students and faculty, his commitment to the growth of student learning and the growth of the institution. He was also a very great humanitarian, and he will be missed, but his contributions will live on. Thank you.
Wait. I've already gotten enough wrong. I don't want to keep getting wrong without my cheat sheet. You know, the nice thing about this group is that, I keep saying this, but it's true. You really are an extended family. So this is no different than standing up in front of a bunch of friends and family and doing what we're doing, which is to remember a great man. So this is fantastic. Let me tell you the story. You're about to hear a wonderful, beautiful singer and accompanist sing to you a song called Dream the Impossible Dream. And I know that some of you have heard my father, refer to that song many times over the years. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that song and how it came to be a part of him. It was his mantra. It started when he was working on his doctoral program. So this is back when he was at UConn as a student. And from morning until night, he would play The Man of La Mancha, the entire album. I'd like to say that we all love it. We can't help but have it a part of us because we heard it all the time. But it was terrific, and there was something special that connected with it. And even then, we knew as children that it was special, that it was unique. And it's unique because of the words. So as you hear it sung today, think about the words. This was a man who, when he left the Army after high school, went to the Army, and coming out of the Army, he was told, you're not smart enough to go to college. You should go to work at the post office. And his mother, who never made it past 6th grade, said, no, my son's not going to be one of those. You're going to go to college. You're going to be the first one in the family to go to college. So he went to college, and he listened to this song as inspiration, that he could dream these impossible dreams, and that this was his impossible dream. So a man who was told that it couldn't be done, we are now honoring today. I'd like to ask Tricia Tahara Stoller, PharmD class of 2020, and Aline Malik Adamian, her accompanist, to serenade us.
We had the good fortune of meeting and performing for Dr. Pumerantz last year, Aline and I, and we were told that he really enjoyed what we did. So when I got a message from Dr. Beverly Guidry asking me if we would consider performing one of his favorite songs here, I said, of course. And then when I found out what the song was, it's a big song. And it's so appropriate because by him chasing after his impossible dream, he created a vehicle for me to chase mine. So listen to the words. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. The unreachable dark. We thank you.
Okay, Julie, a note, we don't want to follow that. Thank you. Something about my father that you all know is that he loved to be a part of the community. For him, the community was a vibrant part of the university, of the college, and then of the university. And without the commitment, involvement, partnerships with the university, all of this isn't possible. It has to come together. Quick story, for those of you who remember the concert in the parks, I'm looking up at Chuck Bader. Stan Selby, who was a former mayor of Pomona when we came here in 1977, Stan gave my father an opportunity. And the opportunity was to go out and to conduct a song every summer at the park in Ganesha. And it was a wonderful thing. Now, what people don't know is, where did that come from? Well, that came from when we as children, we were back in Connecticut, that my parents would take us up to Tanglewood. And for those of you who know what Tanglewood is, that is, or don't, Tanglewood is up in Massachusetts, and that's the summer home, basically, for the Boston Pops. So that's where they would go, and it was concert in the park. You would lay out your blankets, you'd bring picnic dinners, and you would enjoy the Pops right there in Tanglewood. Occasionally, they would invite a guest conductor. And of course, it's not really a guest conductor. It's simply someone they wanted to honor, and the person would step up. So my father had this dream for years that someday he was going to get to do it. Well, it didn't happen with the Boston Pops. But in Pomona, it happened. Now, the other thing I want you to know is that the most important thing for a concert and park guest to do is to be able to end on the downbeat at the end, right? So when you cut it off, da-da, the end. So Stan gave my father a baton, and he gave him the music ahead of time, and usually on cassette, and he'd say, Phil, go home and practice with the baton and just get used to it, so when you get to the end, you end with the band and everyone will think you actually did it. So again, when you walk outside and you see the wonderful pictures that are out on the tables, you will see the actual baton. There's another baton that's over in the office, but the actual baton and the one in the picture where Stan Selby is handing him the baton, that is the baton, and he would sometimes stand in the den and listen and do it. Sometimes he did it in the garage, at the workbench, and he would practice to that song so he could do it. And I wish I could be proud enough to say that he did it, but he never did. Never ended right, and we would give him a hard time every single time. But again, without the community, it's not possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take one opportunity to say, as I'm introducing our next guest here, that part of what he would do was to include the students. So we would have these community events, and he would bring the students. So most of you as students who were here during that period of time, you knew you could go out. And of course, he did what every good president does when he wants students to attend. Food. It's a barbecue. So That's what we did, so we got them to come. So, because there's food afterwards, we know there are students here. And therefore, I would like to introduce Diana Heineken, who is the 2015-2016 Student Government Association Executive President.
Good evening, everyone. It is with so much honor that I'm here being able to give this speech, so thank you for having me. So like he said, my name is Diana. I'm a current fourth-year dental student in the College of Dental Medicine. It is with great privilege that I stand here to share my thoughts and my memories of Dr. Pumerantz. I had the blessing, and I believe a unique opportunity, to work closely with him for 2 years in my leadership roles in student government. His kindness, warmth, and ability to connect with students are unparalleled. Today is an amazing day for all of us to gather together and remember this legacy. This extends beyond the walls and curriculum, but the interactions he has had with each student. For several years, and as we talk about food, I watched him sit at the annual ice cream social where all the students went. He shook the hands of each student that was about to begin their rigorous journey in a graduate program. I watched him talk to each student genuinely and invite them to office hours where they can talk about current events and any educational concerns that they had. I worked very closely with the Board of Trustees, the deans, his staff, and administration. And each person brought his vision of humanism to life on this campus. They listened closely to the students' concerns, and they worked diligently to make our student life robust and very well-rounded. As a past SGA president, I had to give a commencement speech in front of the new students, parents, faculty, and staff. I remember that early morning, I was rehearsing my lines over and over and over again in a dark corner of the Fairplex Convention Center. Luckily for me, Dr. Pumerantz came in that morning, and he kind of saw my anxious behavior. So he came up, he put his hand on my arm, and he said to me, "Don't worry, kiddo, you're gonna do great." There's something about this calm demeanor and genuine presence that simply swept away any fear that I had. He was that kind of person, someone who can bring out the confidence and provide reassurance in a time of need. Tomorrow, for me, is the beginning of a 3-day clinical exam for my dental licensure. It is a day I've been waiting for long before I can remember. But I will forever be grateful for the opportunities I have had here at Western U. From my MSMS degree here in the College of Biomedical Sciences to now dental, I have grown, matured, and I feel prepared to, for a lack of better words, spread my wings and fly. In May, I will stand with yet another class of students who will move on to save lives and help others in our communities. Each and every one of our success as students is a reflection of him and his everlasting legacy. It is without a doubt we will remember and honor Dr. Pumerantz as we continue to attract students who share his vision, as we work diligently to foster a healthy environment for student learning, and as we work to support the alumni that has walked the stage before us. All of this allowing us to see Western U grow and flourish for years to come. I like to end my remarks with this quotation: "A life that touches others goes on forever." Dr. Pumerantz, you will be missed but never forgotten. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to take the Master of Ceremonies prerogative to also introduce the family members who are here today, because without the family members, technically DNA-wise, we wouldn't actually have family here. So I'm going to start with my real boss. No, we actually work together. She's my boss. My wife, Brigitte. Quick side note, we did meet when I was 12 and she was 10 in the anatomy lab, but that's a whole nother story. Yeah, when I said the family runs deep, it really does. My daughter, Clarice. My brother, Andy, who you know. Andy, who can build things, my sister-in-law, Dana, and my niece, Zoe. So I've had, not counting my real boss, I've had two presidents that I've had the pleasure of working under. One was my father, which was a pleasure to learn under his tutelage. And also I had the opportunity while I was at Cal Poly Pomona to work for another outstanding president. So I would like to now introduce President Emeritus Mike Ortiz from Cal Poly Pomona.
Oh, it's really difficult to step up and find more outstanding things to say about Phil, but I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a shot here. When I first met Phil, it was when I first arrived here at Cal Poly, and he was one of the first people to call me, to welcome me to the community. And he invited me to come out and have lunch with him, which I did. And then he told me that Cal Poly and Western had gone forward with an attempt to create a veterinary program. Well, as luck would have it, the University of California at Davis used all their political strength and said, we're not going to have another state institution with the veterinary medicine school here. So it became the veterinary school, which now exists here, which shows exactly the vision that he had and also the stamina that he had to get things done. But when we were having lunch, he said, I have a problem. He said, we need to talk about this. We have to have a partnership here. And I said, well, you know that we've been restricted in terms of being able to have a partnership in the veterinary medicine program. And he says, no. He said, I understand that. He said, but the people in Pomona don't want me bringing animals downtown for our vet school. So I need to use your campus as an opportunity for our students to work with animals in real life. So we forged that partnership, and so while we weren't joint in terms of delivering the degree, I think in some ways we were joint in delivering the degree through the use of the animals at Cal Poly Pomona. When I came to talk to Phil, I was always so impressed with his enthusiasm. And we talked about a lot of things, and we talked about how he managed the challenges that he had here, not only on campus, but also in the community. And he said something to me which I really took to heart. He said, you always have to keep your eye on the vision. Everything else is just noise. And so I listened to that, and I think that that really helped me in terms of my own role and what I was trying to get accomplished. But he knew, as we talked over lunch numerous times, that state-supported institutions had been state-supported, and then they became state-assisted, and then they became state-located. So one of the things that we had to do was raise funds in order to implement the programs and support the programs that we had. And that was an area where Phil was a shining star. And so I really relied on a lot of his help and his advice in how we were going to do that. Although I will say that I mentioned that one time in front of someone, and he said, well, just remember, Mike, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything that I know. So I like to think that perhaps we learned a little bit from each other, but I really did learn a great deal from him with regard to that particular issue. Now, we had a conversation one day as we were having lunch, and he mentioned to me, he said, have you ever considered the possibility of leaving the university for another institution? And I said, no. I said, I think, I love this place, I love what I'm doing, and I'm not going to leave it. He said, well, I was just curious. He said, I'm thinking myself about retiring. And I said, no, that's not going to happen, Phil. But he did say something to me that really had an impact on me. He said, I've done this for this many years, and I'm at a point now in my life where Harriet and I could go anywhere we wanted and do many things that we've never done. He said, but physically we just can't do it. And so that was one of the big encouraging pieces that he gave me, because having listened to him for all the years that we were meeting and talking about things, I said, that's not going to happen to me, Phil. I'm going to retire. And that's exactly what I did. But I owe Phil a great deal, as does this community. This place would not be what it is. When I talk about this place, I'm talking about the community at large. Would not be the place that it is were it not for his vision, again, keeping his eye on the prize, and his stamina and amazing vision and view of what could take place here at Western University of Health Sciences. He will always be remembered by his students. Clearly, I think that he has more children than I ever thought he had in terms of the family here, but they will represent him well because he did a magnificent job of putting this institution together. Thank you.
Since we're talking about university presidents, who for a great deal of their responsibility is to raise money, and I'm about to introduce another president, it's appropriate that I stick in this one little bit of trivia, which I believe people have heard me say before, but if you haven't, and since we're now live streaming on YouTube, we'll have an opportunity to actually make sure everyone knows. My father, as I said, was a visionary man. He had a fantastic ability to dream things that no one could see. So often the most difficult part of being president was to translate what he envisioned in his head to donors. How do we get people excited about what we're doing? Because if we don't have financial support, we're in trouble. So we've got to keep people excited. At the very beginning, he was still learning, how do we do this? And he literally would sell month at a time, help the university for the month of March. We'll do it. And this went on for a while. So my father-in-law said to him one day, Phil, you need a little smoke and mirrors. And he said, okay, well, what do we do? He said, well, when you have the next donor coming over, call me and I'll take care of the rest. So a donor was coming in and he called Rod and he said, okay, Rodney, I got someone coming in. What are you going to do? He said, don't worry, I got it taken care of. So the next thing he knows, there's a crew that comes in from another construction site, and they bring in lumber, and they bring in sawhorses, and saws, and hammers, and they start making a ruckus, and they're creating sawdust, and they're throwing all over the academic center back then, what's now the Rodney P. Weinberg Center, okay? Sawdust and banging and wood and all the rest, and the donor came through and was so excited, they took out their checkbook and wrote a check. Now, for those of you who don't know, what's really funny about that is the fact that there wasn't a single piece of wood used in the construction of the Academic Health Center. It was all tin can studs and drywall. So, it's all about the vision. It's about where we're going to be. And of course, he always came through with his visions. So I'd like to introduce now another partner in the community, a partner in the educational process, Dr. Devorah Lieberman from the University of Laverne.
Richard, every time I talk to your dad, he said, you need to hire Richard in your fundraising office. And I'll talk to you after when we're outside. So I'm very, very honored to be included in this this wonderful celebration of President Phil Pumerantz. He was a wonderful partner in some way, to every single person in this room and thousands of people beyond. There's a famous saying from Maya Angelou, many of us know it, that goes something like, people may not be remembered for what they've accomplished, but they will always remember you for how you made them feel. Well, Phil Pumerantz truly was the exception to that saying, because Phil Pumerantz will always be remembered for what he's accomplished, and he will always be remembered for how he made every person feel. And if you think about that, to the stories that each person told up here this afternoon and evening, you'll remember the accomplishments that everybody talked about, and also how every person felt, whether they touched their arm in the parking lot, they met their family, when they were students, as a mentor, as a president, everybody felt special to Phil, and he made everybody feel special while he kept his eye on the vision. It's a very hard thing to do. Some are one, some are the other. He was always both. When I first met Phil, it was 2011, I first became the president at the University of Laverne, and he called me and said, he didn't say pop in, Gary, he said pop up the hill and come see me. So I came to his office, and that gorgeous office, and he sat me down on the couch next to him, and he talked to me about what does it mean to be a university president? What does it mean to always focus on the mission of your institution and on the students of your institution? And he began that day to talk to me as a friend, to talk to me as a mentor, and to talk to me as a colleague and a peer. And I'll never forget that, because his reaching out made me feel welcome in this community, and showed me that I had someone to whom I could turn when I had difficult situations, and someone who would be honest with me, tough with me, but always support me. One of the first things I noticed about Phil was when he spoke about Western, he spoke from his heart, he spoke from his head, but he never used the pronoun I. He always used the pronoun we. We built this university together. The deans did this. The provost has done this. The faculty are doing this. He was a means to the end, but it was the we. It was everybody around him who helped accomplish everything that you see today. And it was interesting because when he spoke about the we, he always spoke about Harriet, and how everything that was accomplished here was accomplished because of and with Harriet. But I have to be absolutely honest. On one of those first discussions, he said to me, I'm going to tell you a story that I have not told many people about Harriet and I driving across the country. And I thought I was the only one he had told that story to. So, if I said, raise your hand if you've heard that story, hundreds of hands would go up here today. And I remember the second time he told that story, my husband Roger and I were invited by Harriet and Phil on a Friday night to celebrate the Shabbos, the Sabbath, at their country club. And we were invited, and we were so honored. We were invited several times to share the Sabbath with Harriet and Phil. And it was beautiful, beautiful, sitting in the country club, having that special personal moment and getting to know Phil and Harriet as human beings who love their community, love the university, and more than anything else, we saw them loving each other. And that is something that my husband and I took home with us every time we ate with Phil and Harriet, because they led by example for what it means to be committed to one another as a loving couple. So when I think of Phil, I think of a remarkable visionary, a remarkable president, a remarkable, forward-thinking, and kind man. So once again, this man was not and will not just be remembered for all that he has accomplished. He will be remembered for how he's made every single one of us feel. We'll miss you, Phil.
Just a side note on the partnership with my mother and my father, that it was a true partnership. And if you've ever seen over the years, for those of you who were blessed to be able to be a part of the Phil and Harriet show, it was terrific because they did everything together. Now, one thing you may not know is that since 1977, up until I don't know how many years ago, every single one of my father's good speeches were written by my mother. True. Something that was important not only to my father, but also to my mother, is children. The reason that they became, both of them, became teachers, became educators, was because of their love, their passion for children. So our next speaker today, Victor Caceres, is kind of the local embodiment of my parents' passion for the youth in our community. And I'm going to make sure that I get Victor's titles correct. He is the Executive Director, Youth and Family Club of Pomona Valley, and also the current president of the the Rotary Club of Pomona.
It's an honor to be here. Whoa. Honor to be here. Dr. P and Harriet, obviously, as you've heard already, we're a team. And Dr. P was transformational. In my eyes, as I saw a man do what he did here in this university, but what he also did in reaching out to the community and caring about kids and youth and families and the true community that surrounded this university. He's left a legacy of humanism that continues to transform our community and beyond, our state and our country, through you, through folks who continue to grow and build your lives for the future of this community. When I remember Dr. P and I think about Harriet, I think of two human beings that resonate humanism, caring and love. They pour their hearts into this university and to this community. Many times, we would have Western University students at the club, teaching our kids, doing presentations, doing vaccinations, dental exams, all kinds of different things for the benefit of our community, for the benefit of our kids and families. It's ongoing. This started years ago, and it's ongoing today. Dr. P and Harriet were involved with a variety of organizations and community groups, but I have to say, the Youth and Family Club, formerly known as the Boys and Girls Club of Pomona Valley, also referred to now as the club, were their favorites. They invested many resources to help make the club one of the most accessible youth development organizations in our community. And for this, we are extremely grateful. One thing I will always remember about Dr. P is that it was never about him. It was always about everyone but him. He used to tell me at club community functions, he would say to me, if you're going to recognize me, don't. And give the recognition to Harriet. Because without her, I couldn't do what I do. I would say to him, you're a wonderful man for saying that. Harriet is so lucky to have you. And he'd say to me, no, I'm lucky to have her. Dr. P, truly an amazing, transformational, passionate human being. God is with you, Dr. P. And like I promised, God bless Harriet. We love you.
There's always special friends, and I think there are an endless number of conversations that we can all have, not just with each other, but with ourselves about what my father, your colleague, your friend, your mentor has meant to you. And I think it's quite important today that we also hear from others in our community and their felt impact from Philip Pumerantz. And so I'd like to invite Elaine Zakaria to come and give her thoughts.
Well, this is a scary place. I have to tell you that my husband was a pathologist at La Mirada Hospital. And 30 or 40 years ago, he used to tell me about this very amazing man that he worked with, Dr. Allen, Ethan Allen, and his wild dreams to build a school in California that would encourage humanism and the practice of medicine combined. And he was willing to stick his neck out, going to, I do believe, the state legislature and judicial approval to get, he had to go to a state Supreme Court to get approval for this school. Now that was just the first step. And then the second step was to find someone to run it and to do it. And I do believe the documentation here of Dr. Pomerantz's discovery was good. But then, of course, he had the problem of getting money. So it was a tremendous undertaking, one of staggering complexity, that we fail to realize how much went into this entire operation. And we need to all appreciate the tremendous accomplishment that these two men together, plus all the other people that were involved, were able to accomplish. And I would like to give them a tremendous round of applause for that incredible effort. You know, the first time my husband brought me to this location, we walked by a Dr. Seuss comedy event. You know, the whole building had been in a movie. And the next step was, of course, the old J.C. Penney, and I thought possibly May Company was involved. I may be wrong. But it was certainly different from today's school. And I think the biggest thrill I had was when I came and saw that trees were actually planted. So I just can't even fathom the amount of work that went into all this development. It's just mind-boggling. And then, of course, as all things, good things come to an end, my husband became ill. And the last two people that visited him were Dr. Allen and Mrs. Pomerantz. So to them I owe a great thanks for the comfort they gave to us. It's very it's very memorable. And then third, I'd like to mention that not only your children, but my children, my grandchildren have benefited from this institution. Because we have found, I give you an example, my first granddaughter was a major in biology at UC Irvine, top in her class. She couldn't get a job. So she worked in my son's office for a few years, and she really liked it. So she applied to come here. She was accepted. And they liked her work so much that they asked her to stay and help teach in the pathology lab. I mean, you know, where you have to dissect the cadavers. And she did that. She helped out in the lab. And then they asked her to stay an extra year to help with the manipulation therapy. So she did that for a year, and now she's a very, very busy obstetrician, delivering babies like crazy and loving it. And she has 2 of her own, so life goes on, and it goes very well. I have another grandchild here who's going to be a very fine internal medicine man, and he's in 3rd year now, and he loves it. So the opportunities that these young folks have created for us, Dr. and Mrs. Pumerantz, and all the fine faculty they have, are really doing a tremendous job, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude for the fine work they do. And it's hit home personally. Thank you.
I'd like to also now introduce Ms. Josephine Young, who is our next speaker, and share her warm memories.
Well, I know Phil, I think back to about 20 years ago. And about 10 years ago, he invited me and Khan come to his office to have the lunch. And he said he wants our friendship and our idea to help him to build the university. And at that time, that's the first time that I learned. The school was started in the warehouse. And with the limited funding, he can only put the carpet for the first class when they have it. And on the other hand, he had to fight for a long and tough battle with the state in order to allow the school college to exist. Well, I admire his hardworking, vision, and also persistent. And without his vision, persistence, hardworking, I don't think that the school is standing in here now and expanding so good. Well, and I respect him so much, and that's why we become friends of the university for so many years. We have been discussed a lot of things regarding the university and a lot of other things together. And I will say in here today, even though Phil is not here, but we will honor our word. Whatever we have been discussed before and talked about it, we will honor our word and deliver to the university. And we really miss him a lot. Okay, thank you.
Before our next speaker, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the students who so graciously gave of their time so that we could have the flag representation salute and also the singing of the national anthem. For the flag salute, we had Calvin Conan, Michael Fisher, and Lucine Zakarian. They were all from the comp class of 2020. You can give them applause. And we also had the Western U Chamber Singers, who included Millie Mae Hathaway, DO Class of 2020, Timothy Ho, DO Class of 2020, Megan Messenger, DO Class of 2021, Hardeep Singh, DO Class of 2020, Amanda Thompson, DO Class of 2021, and Sherry Wang, DPT Class of 2019. So at this time, now I'd like to introduce Dr. Beverly Guidry to come and make a very special presentation to our mom.
Dr. Pumerantz loved students, and I think that's really all I need to say. You've heard so much today about him, about his legacy, but he loved students. I met Dr. Pumerantz in September of 1982 when he interviewed me for the first position for an admissions recruiter, and he wanted to see who would be the face of the university as we started recruiting students in the Western United States. And through his retirement, he interviewed every admissions recruiter that was ever hired here at Western University of Health Sciences. He always wanted to know them by name and by face. Mrs. Pumerantz, much has been said today about Dr. Pumerantz's vision and determination in establishing the College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacific, and how that vision and determination guided our evolution into the influential and impactful university we know today. But each of us is keenly aware that it is also was something more powerful, the Pumerantz partnership that got us here. I heard someone say that earlier, the Pumerantz partnership that got us here. So much of who we are as a university was forged in Comp's earliest days when you worked side by side with Dr. Pumerantz to ensure that the college would succeed for years to come, and that it would always be a warm, welcoming, sophisticated, sublime environment for every person who joined the university family. These students who represent not only the soul of Western U's mission, but also the breadth of its success and ambition, are displaying one of its very first Western U flags, created shortly after the transition of Comp into a full university. These flags were always displayed at convocation and commencement, and we know those were two of his favorite times of the year. And they were prominently displayed in his office, among many other places. I'm honored to present this flag to you, Mrs. Pumerantz, on behalf of a grateful university community and on behalf of all those blessed by the compassion, expertise, and human touch of a Western University of Health Sciences healer. Your shared vision, your shared determination, your endless hours of sacrifice and work, your high standards, all are the foundational fabric of this university, as essential to what we are today as gold and brown thread are to this flag. We are here now because you were there then, and we thank you and we love you.
we're now about the end of our program. The family is going to be staying afterwards. I encourage all of you to stay afterwards as well, to talk with each other. I know there are many of you who have not had an opportunity to see each other in many years. So please, I want you to stay, come, eat, we'll break bread together. And I'd like to leave you with two final thoughts. First one, a little more comical. My father was a very, very kind man, a kind soul. And growing up, we would often hear our last name pronounced in a variety of ways. And he refused to correct anyone because he said, it doesn't matter. He used to call me Richie. He said, it doesn't matter, Richie. The fact that they're saying something, that they're commenting, that they're calling me, that's all that matters. The rest of it doesn't matter. I said, I know, Dad, but can't you at least every once in a while? And he didn't. So his entire life, he never corrected anyone in the pronunciation of his last name. So, in following that tradition, if you would like to know the actual pronunciation, see me afterwards. Otherwise, I'll leave it as a mystery. And the last thought I want to leave you is this, and it actually took until now for me to understand this. I used to tell him, you need to write this down. You have done something that is so unique in the history of education. This has never been done before. It probably will never be done again. And as a historian, I would say, Dad, you need to write this down. You have to document it. There has to be a way to pass on what you have done and how it's done to others. And I don't think it was until now that I quite understood. Some people write with parchment, some people write with ink, and some people write chiseled in stone. My father wrote with lives, every one of you. So his story continues on forever because you are all parts of his life. Thank you for all coming.